Tom Marazzo, give it up.
Because it's a long video.
I live in my car. I lost everything. And you guys won't even shut your mouths for 2 minutes and let me get some sense into your heads. Just stop. Just stop. Check your ego.
You know what? I think that's all we need.
Okay.
I'm sure Ms. Zexley will be very proud of Mr. Marazzo talking about supporters of the
I'm not
protest.
sure you're here to give evidence.
Mr. Dichter, what can
It says, doesn't vandalize, just honks, uses meme warfare in real life, creates a schedule of the honk for maximum freedom enhancing effects, disrupts the status quo by not letting people sleep in tyranny, withholds the soy from reaching the soy jack until freedom improves, uses the power of vibrating air to chase the prime minister out of the country, just straight up says to the crying soy jack, the honking will continue until freedom improves. Train horn not enough, we need a ship horn. And there are a variety of caricatures at the bottom, looking to have tears pouring out of their eyes, their hands in their face.
They're called NPCs in internet culture.
And can you explain that to us, sir?
A non-playable character is the term, what it means. Yeah.
And we see the reference to the term soy jack. Can you illuminate us on what the term soy jack refers to?
You have to really, this is going down the rabbit hole of internet humor culture. Like, it's a joke, right? It may not lend itself to legal proceedings, but this is, I mentioned Elon Musk. This is the sort of thing that he would put out frequently. He's probably the most popular to do it. And also, we knew there was a honking injunction, so people would go out on social media and they would put hashtag honk honk. It wasn't people actually going outside and honking. It was their way to show their support for the convoy.
But you would agree with me that this type of humor, whether it's in jest or not, is perhaps not getting the message across to convoy participants to lay off the horns in light of the injunction.
No, I think it's good to get people to have something that, it might not be your type of humor, but for people who were freezing in their trucks for 3 weeks, they need something. They need some sort of pick-me-up, and I think for them, it's a way for people to vent, right? That's why we have free speech, for conflict resolution. And that's the power. That's why humor was very important. And there's so many memes going around the internet through all of this. Some of it was, look, for me, some of it was too extreme and distasteful. I get it, but I'm not going to dictate what people should say. Just, okay, that's not my thing. But then other stuff was great. It was, you have a whole range of different worldviews and opinions, because with people from all over the world that were supporting us. When I was in Colombia, there were people there who wanted to meet me because they were supporting. When I was in Miami, there were people who recognized me as Uber drivers that were supporting us. So you have a whole range of people with different worldviews.
And in the interest of time, I won't take you to the second daily report of this nature, but for the record, HRF 6043 is a February 13th daily report that has a humor section along these lines as well. And I don't know if you recall it off the top of your head, but there is a daily humor section at the bottom that says the supreme art of war is to tire the enemy with honking. So something that you find equally funny along these lines, I take it.
Well, it's not literally honking in your truck. Again, you'll probably see those memes were grabbed from the internet, where people were putting memes up with the hashtag honk honk. That's where it all comes from.
And lastly, sir, I'll just ask you a couple of other questions about the impact.
And you see that?
Yep.
Okay. And is that in fact correct? You did see that notice to protesters?
Negative.
You did not see it?
Nope. This is Freedom Convoy 22. I'm Convoy for Freedoms, the original.
Okay, so you didn't see that. Okay.
No.
And then if you could please go to page 7. The second paragraph, I believe. Yeah, you're actually highlighted in there. And it indicates, police information indicates James Botter of Canada Unity was more so aligned with King, that's Pat King. His current position as to who he may align with or direct his some odd 40-odd trucks remains a gap. So am I correct that you were in fact aligned with Mr. King
In what perspective?
in terms of your participation in the
So Pat King, I mean, it's no secret. I mean, the guy's a social media guy, and that's what we brought Pat King in for. It was social media, and he was really good at it. Plus, he also had a background in convoys and logistics and stuff like that. So I mean, Pat was Pat, and we don't have to agree. That's the beauty of all of this, is that we all had individual rights to be here, and we came together as a team with our indifferences included.
Right, and then it talks about you having about 40-odd trucks that you believed were in your control. Is that a reasonable estimate?
No.
Was more or less?
With respect to what date, when, and 40 trucks, like I don't even.
That you would have some influence on whether they would stay or go?
I don't have influence over anybody that's exercising their Bill of Rights, nor would I ever want to.
Okay, thank you
We're
very
all
much.
free will to come here on our own.
Mr. Bowder, you've testified many times about your love and brotherhood for others and your love of unity, but you would agree with me, you don't feel unity towards all Canadians. It does not include Canadians, for example, of Islamic faith. Isn't that right?
No.
You are upset that you feel the government of Canada promotes Islamic ideologies. You said that before, correct?
Was that before I found God?
Okay, so you've said that before.
Was that before I found God? Because you're asking dates, and I don't agree with what you're saying now, to date, right now.
Okay, well, that's good. I appreciate
that's where I'm under oath to
appreciate
date.
that.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, I thank you. I appreciate that. Now, we've seen some documents up there where you've referred to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as Justine Trudeau. Why do you refer to him as Justine Trudeau?
Why not?
Are you trying to suggest something, it's emasculating or making some kind of comments or suggesting
typo.
that
I don't
she's,
know. Could be
Pardon
a
me?
typo. I don't know.
Pardon me?
Could be a typo.
Was it a typo? It's your words, sir.
Well, maybe it's a typo. I don't know.
But are you telling us it's a typo, or were you trying to suggest something because you think it's somehow negative to be of transgender or so forth? Is
As
that
an
the point
alpha
you're trying to make?
male, trucker, oil patch, farm boy kind of guy, and seeing old little Mr. Trudeau there in his boxing shorts with his juice box water bottle sort of things, yeah, we call him Justine.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay, that's any re-examination?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bowder. You're free to go.
Am I free to go, or?
Yes, you are.
My name is Rob Kittredge, and I'm counsel for the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. And you, like me, are a chatty man and a challenging witness. So I'm going to try and do the impossible
trying to
here.
be challenging, honestly.
Well,
I'm trying to be as open as I can.
I agree that you are being as open as you can, but I'm going to try and persuade you to give me yes or no answers if you can, because what we're trying to, one of the things we're trying to do here, we have a short period of time, and I am trying to construct an argument that the Emergencies Act was invoked unlawfully by Trudeau, and your yes or no answers will help me to do that.
I can play with this.
Pardon me?
I can get along with it.
All right, well, let's see how well we do.
Do we have a clock?
So what I'm looking for is a little clarification on a series of questions that my friend Counsel for Canada asked you earlier on today about how you and others in Ottawa inspired other protests across Canada and around the world. You had an emotional response to those questions, as I think I would as well if I were in your position. And I just wanted to get a bit of clarification for the record about what inspired meant to you in that context. And again, if we can do yes or no question, yes or no answers, that would be great. Counsel for Canada said that when he said you, he didn't just mean you, he meant, and I quote, the collective you, meaning you and the other people in Ottawa. Was that your understanding when you answered those questions?
No, I thought he was referring to me
To
personally.
you specifically?
Yeah.
All right. So, Council for, I thought, well, it doesn't matter what I think. Council for Canada suggested that you inspired other protests across Canada and around the world. You agreed. You remember that series of questions, do you?
Yeah, the questions, yeah.
All right. I understood your answers and your emotional response to mean that you were proud that the protest here in Ottawa had been seen by others in Canada and around the world, and that they had independently decided to protest themselves. Was that your understanding? Yeah. Can you say yes for the record?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a written transcript.
Yes.
So. And
I say sorry a lot.
Pardon me?
Typical Canadian, I say sorry a lot.
Right, as do I. So while the Ottawa protesters, yourself included, may have inspired protests outside of Ottawa, you didn't organize any of those other protests, did you?
No.
People elsewhere may have seen what you and others were doing here in Ottawa, but they independently decided to follow that example and raise their voices in protest, didn't they?
Yes.
And just to be, I guess, fair to you, since you've been so fair to me, I have a minute or two left. If I was wondering if there was anything you'd like to tell us about how it felt to inspire people around the world to raise their voices.
Get into my feelings.
Objection. I'm not sure how that's relevant.
Oh,
It's okay. It's okay. I still to this day, how I feel. I'm broken, but because people come together and they chose on their own accord to choose one word, unity, I will forever be grateful and thankful for Canada for giving the world hope, because we needed it. I got a lot of feelings, and I'm sorry.
well, thank you very much, Mr. Bowder. Those are my questions.
Thanks for the love, and thanks for the bear hugs.
About 19 months during the pandemic, so I left that board right as that merger happened. But I stuck with the Wexit Canada board, and then we renamed ourselves into the Maverick Party,
So is Maverick essentially Wexit but with a new name?
basically.
And when you said you had concerns about, I think, how the West was being treated, can you expand on what those concerns were?
Yes, sir. At that time, we were dealing with Bill C-69 and Bill C-48, and I was just seeing friends and family that worked in the energy industry in Alberta suffering as a result of some of that legislation. There was job losses, and I just saw people losing their jobs and coming into my office, you know, handing me their resume with tears in their eyes, asking for a job 2 weeks before Christmas. And I just felt like I needed to get involved and exercise my democratic rights.
And again, for people who maybe not be as familiar, can you explain how those bills, at least in your mind, led to the job loss you're talking about?
Well, Bill C-69 was the No More Pipelines bill, and I think you can recall at that time there was the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion and other pipelines that they had been discussing or proposing, Energy East, for an example. And when all those got canceled, a lot of people didn't have any work.
What is the goal of the Maverick Party?
The goal of the Maverick Party was to seek constitutional reform for better equality for Western Canada, or to seek an independence, very much like what Quebec has, being referred to as a nation within a nation.
And what, can you give any examples of the constitutional reform that the Maverick Party is seeking?
I believe one of them was the getting more equal seats in the House of Commons. I mean, a big concern for people in the West is that every election, before the polls even close in Alberta, it's already decided. The elections are already decided. So I think myself and a lot of people in the West just felt like we didn't really have a voice in the House of Commons.
Does the Maverick Party consider the federal government to have too much power?
I don't necessarily think so.
And going back to the constitutional reforms that you referenced, and then I think the next thing you said was, if there isn't constitutional reform, then ultimately
That I left up to the professionals.
did you, through dealing with the professionals, did you come to have any understanding of how they distributed the fuel?
I'm assuming with a fuel bulker of some sort, or I honestly don't know.
And when you're talking about the professionals, who are you referring to?
The truck drivers.
Was there anyone in particular, or any people in particular, who were responsible for overseeing the logistics of distributing fuel?
We did have a few volunteers that came on board. There was a gentleman that was there for the first, I think he was there for the first week, who looked after that. And then he had to leave, and another gentleman stepped in and took it over, who was from Alberta, Calgary, I believe. And then another gentleman from Ontario that assisted.
And who were those gentlemen?
The first one, I believe, was Joey Mitsu, M-I-Z-U. Tihan, I'm sorry, I don't know his last name. He was from Calgary. And then John Skubik, who is from Ontario.
What happened to the receipts that the captains returned?
I have them in an envelope in my room. They were scanned and sent, I believe Eva Chipiuk had scanned them. And there was, one of the road captain's uncle was here, so he created a spreadsheet so that we could keep track of all of them also.
If we could go to GFM 156. So this is a GoFundMe attestation letter. Are you familiar with this document?
Yes.
Can you describe what this document is and what its purpose was?
I don't really remember the details. Is it okay if I read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks to me they just wanted confirmation on how where the funds were going and how they would be distributed.
Right, and the clerk has scrolled down now, and what I want to ask you about is, it says, with the oversight of the Finance Committee, I will execute the following plan to meet the stated purpose of the fundraiser and distribute the funds raised and released to me. And then it sets out a process. Do you see that there?
I do, sir.
Do you recall making this form of commitment to GoFundMe?
I do, yep.
And it's our understanding that GoFundMe sought this sort of commitment as part of the ongoing discussion about whether or not it would release the funds. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe they were trying to do their due diligence.
And you see here, it sets out a process. Funds will be distributed via e-transfer directly from the TD Unlimited checking account, established in my name to individual convoy participants.
You recognized once the support started coming and we began growing that we should have something in place for people to sign saying that they would adhere to a code of conduct.
Right. Do you recall if this was distributed?
It was put on about the backside of the registration forms, I believe.
And those were the registration forms to get reimbursement?
Yes.
Was it distributed in any other manner?
I think they could get them by email or get hard copies. I think we had them up on a website.
Was anything done to proactively distribute them, for instance, to the people who were on the ground in Ottawa?
We had printed off a lot of copies. We had big hopes when this started and that. And so we'd printed off a bunch of copies to have the road captains take to the drivers to sign, thinking that this would be a fairly simple task. But because of the amount of participation that we had, it was crazy. But I actually did receive a lot of them through email, so they did get out.
I'm not asking for a precise number in any way, shape, or form, but do you have a sense of how many you got back?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
A lot.
Right. And we see here in item 3, it says, be respectful. Everyone will have their own reasons for participating in this convoy, and we need to be respectful of their reasons. What were you trying to capture in that point?
Well, I believe in being respectful, and while I may have been going to Ottawa to, because of the mandates, there are the mandates. I mean, what my reasons were for wanting the mandates to be lifted may not have been the same as somebody else's reasons for wanting the mandate lifted.
To your knowledge, was there anyone there who was seeking to do something other than end the mandates?
No.
In all the people you spoke to, did anyone ever suggest that they had any other goal than ending the mandates?
Other than hearing about the MOU, which, as you've heard today, I haven't even read it yet, but other than that, no.
And what were you hearing about the MOU? I know you haven't read it, but what were you hearing about it?
What did I hear about it? I just heard that it was a document that was to be presented to the Governor General. I really don't recall all the details. It was just a general in passing, I guess.
Item number 4 says not promote harmful media. What did you consider to be harmful media?
Well, no hateful rhetoric. We didn't want any sort of divisive rhetoric. Just, again, it goes back to point 3, be respectful. We didn't, I was on lives daily saying that we are going to Ottawa to peacefully protest and exercise our democratic right to assembly. We are not going there to create problems and, you know, I said if you see anyone that's acting in a threatening manner or an aggressive manner, to get their license plates, phone the police and report it, or contact us and we could report it. We just didn't want any of that type of behavior happening here because that was never what it was about.
Did you believe that there might be people in the convoy who may promote hateful content?
It was a concern. Again, I know when we were on our way at one point, I believe it was when we got to Thunder Bay, we were on our way to Thunder Bay, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody had contacted me saying they thought that there was infiltrators, Antifa, that had infiltrated our convoy from Winnipeg that were maybe going to cause some problems for us. So there was always, that kind of information was always coming to us, right?
Other than potential actions by Antifa, were you concerned about other people potentially making or promoting hateful content?
Not really. Everyone that I talked to and saw, and we're all there for the same reason.
At any point in time, to your knowledge, did any of the organizers have to do anything to have to take any action because there was reports of either threats, harassment, violence, or hateful conduct, or anything that you would have thought was inappropriate?
Well, of course, there was the conversation that Benjamin, when he called me that one morning when we were on our way, I think it was our second day, and there had been a tweet come out about Mr. King talking about bullets. And so that was obviously concerning. We stopped and we chatted with him on the side of the road about it. He indicated that it had been heavily edited by some media, I'm not sure. But it was people that were upset with some mainstream media. And I just wanted to, I did my video because regardless of how angry we are with the lack or the leadership that we've seen, the divisive rhetoric, the division between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated that I've seen come from elected officials, civil servants, towards their own people. And I saw those flags one day, and I kept thinking, I got to get to the stage and make a speech. Like I felt that I needed to get there, and I needed to just say, you know, Mr. Trudeau has 3 children. And I have 3 children. And my kids have to wake up and see this stuff on social media too. Actually, when I was arrested, my 19-year-old daughter woke up to read an article that I hung myself in jail.
She's 19.
Thank you, Ms. Leach. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Folks, if you want to keep up to date on what's happening at the Emergency Act Inquiry, including my live tweets and some clips and highlights that occurring at the Emergency Act Inquiry, by heading over to revolutionnews.ca/Emergency Act Commission. That's revolutionnews.ca/Emergency Act Commission. And of course, here, folks, while you're there, please head over to donorbox.org/Emergency Act Commission. That's donorbox.org/Emergency Act Commission. And of course, here, folks, if you could chip in a buck or two, that will be greatly appreciated, as it will help me cover my travel expenses, including my expenses on food, as bringing you these stories doesn't come for free. Thank you so much.